Welcome back to DNC in 23. I'm Alex. I'm joined by Dave. The gang's all here,
We're both here, baby.
back together, and we're talking all things Thursday, June 22nd, second day of summer at Citi Field in New York City. I would love to make a joke right here about like the home of the second best baseball team in New York,
Mm,
but there are no good baseball teams in New York.
yeah, not
So
right now.
so we can't, as two diehard Yankee fans, we can't really talk any of that mess right now,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Plus, Mayor was rocking a Mets jersey last night, so I think we got to let the Mets have this one tonight.
That's fair. I will say our friend Mike at about half past dead. If you want to follow him on Instagram, he made the artwork for this episode. He's our bud. First of all, congrats to him on having his absolutely bogus criminal charges for copyright infringement being dropped. That's very
Hey,
exciting.
there we go. Nice.
But also he made a great Mets hat that he showed us like the prototype of in Atlanta that is like a Mets symbol, and then it's Bart Simpson spray painting sucks next to it. And there are some other cool touches on it. He's got another one designed for these upcoming shows in Boston. So shout out to About Half Past Dead. Go find him on the lot and buy some of his wares. He makes great artwork, and you will dig it, and you'll dig him. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
So
Hey, speaking of the lot, shout out to certified podhead Howard Weiner was doing some selling at Shakedown for these last 2 days at the City Field shows.
and in SPAC, you guys just didn't run into each other.
Yeah, just missed him.
Which it would have been awesome if you would have run into him wearing the shirt with his book's cover on it, but that's all right.
Yeah, I was repping it. I was repping him. But unfortunately, paths didn't cross.
Yeah,
It was too fucking crowded.
yeah, that's what I heard. Both from your episode about it and from the masses. So, anyways, a show that was not too crowded was this show on the 22nd at Citi Field. Let's get into it. This was Dead & Co.'s 11th and final time playing at this venue. Um, you know, I think it's either that or Wrigley that are like the number one most played venue. I don't
I
remember what we
thought
said for Wrigley.
I think we said that with this second show in New York,
They were going to
City
pass it.
Field then takes the number one spot because it has 11 and Wrigley has 10.
10. Yeah, that makes sense. So Citi Field is Dead & Co.'s home away from home. Not too far from where John Mayer grew up in Connecticut either. Probably 45-minute drive, if that, to his hometown. So, I mean, literally a hometown show for him. Um, so as far as our boots on the ground, we didn't get many reports about what last night's show was like. I know that the weather was a little bit crappy night one of this stand. Last night the weather looked beautiful. It looked like a great night for a show. So I'm sure everyone enjoyed that. Dave and I went to night two at Citi Field last year, and Dave went to both nights. So we both have some familiarity with what it's like to see a show in this venue. Not the best acoustics, but not bad. Not bad at all. It ends up being a really nice place to watch a show. And like you were saying, Dave, about the Wrigley shows, baseball stadiums just know how to move people in and out, and especially in New
Right.
York.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, great place to watch a show. It's always good to see the Dead in New York City.
Yeah, they left it all on the table for a venue that I think is special. Well, a city that is special to all of them.
Yeah. So let's get into it. Let's talk about the set list. These Citi Field shows they moved slightly backward. So they have been starting at 7 and ending at 11, but we're in the city that never sleeps, so there's no 11 o'clock curfew. They could play until 11:30, which means that they were starting at 7:30. So the band hit the stage around 7:45 last night, and they opened with "Feel Like a Stranger." That was one of my picks in estimated profits. It felt like they were long overdue for it, and so many people. Um, I think that for myself and three other people all had Truckin' and Feel Like a Stranger because both felt like such chalk. So I was kind of like, oh, nice. Two, I gained ground. I didn't gain ground on any of the people who were ahead of us in the standings because everyone basically got two. So Feel Like a Stranger, I thought that it was a pretty great opening. I loved the jam toward the end of this song. It just felt like the entire band was so comfortable in it. I especially loved Mayer's playing and just some really authoritative drumming during that back end jam. It just was delightful.
Yeah, I agree. I'm gonna give credit to the start of the back end jam to O'Teal. I think he started to get a little more bounce as the song went on, and then everyone else kind of picked up on it.
Love it. So you have a note on our shared sheet for the next song, Franklin's Tower.
I do.
A surprise.
It was a surprise to me because SPAC Night 2, which was just Sunday, only 2 shows ago, I got to help slip Frank in set 2 of SPAC Night 2. So they only had one show in between Citi Field Night 1, and then they came out with a Franklin's Tower. But this is not the first time this tour that they've only taken a 1 or 2 show break between songs. So but still a surprise to see it come up again that quick.
It also, I don't know if you remember this, but in 2021, you saw them in Raleigh and they played Help Slip Frank. And then 2 shows later, you saw them in Philly and they played Franklin's Tower as a standalone
They
that show
did,
too.
and a standalone in set 1 as well. So
Yep.
yes, exactly.
So you've been the boots on the ground for this before.
Right.
So I thought that this was a really good Franklin's. Jeff was bringing the heat on that Hammond B3 organ of his. And then Mayer's solo after we rolled away the dew was really great. The beginning to me was like controlled chaos, just a few bars where it was like he's fitting about 1,000,000 notes into each measure, and it sounded wonderful. So I thought that this was a really good Franklin's to keep set 1 rolling right along.
Yeah. And then from Franklin's into Mama Tried, which the crowd ate up.
Yeah, because of that Jeff and John chemistry, just on full
Yeah.
display throughout this song. Really great solos by both.
And then that continued in Alabama Getaway. I mean, Jeff rocked the organ in Alabama Getaway, as he usually does with that song.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. It was only like 4 minutes long by my count.
Yeah, they don't ever really jam it out, but they just keep it hot the whole time, and then
Yeah.
usually and then they cut it. We should usually with these we read the whole set, so I feel like we should do that.
Well,
Do
at
you
this
like
point, we're too deep. We'll do it
Yeah.
for set 2. We're too deep now. So let's keep going.
from Alabama Getaway into weirdly what I thought was the highlight of set 1, the Dear Mr. Fantasy into Hey Jude
I agree with
combo
you. I agree.
that we were fortunate enough to see in New York City
In
last
this
year.
basically same exact slot in the set list. It was, I believe that they played it as like the penultimate basically moment of set 1 last year, didn't they?
I feel like I thought they played it kind of early in set 1 when we saw it last year. I thought it was like playing Uncle John, Dear Mr. Fantasy.
Could have been. Yeah. That would check out.
But they've been, for this tour this year, they've been consistently playing this in like that penultimate set 1 slot, like kind of the jammier end to set 1 that they've been playing around with this.
Well, this I think was if you include the jam after Hey Jude, this was the jammiest moment of set 1 because so like Dear Mr. Fantasy has this really like the first solo that Mayer had, very restrained, and not what I was expecting because leading into that, both Mickey and Jay were absolutely hammering those drums. Like it felt like a natural entree into just a solo that he would just start smoking hot on. But instead, he started with this restrained, like a tiger lurking in the tall grass. Then the second solo, well, during that solo, he just kept building and building and building. He got into this really nice bluesy segment. And then the second solo just absolutely smoldered. It was like the guitar
lift
equivalent
off
of lava, just absolutely so hot. And then he really continued with it. The same thing that we experienced when we saw this in Raleigh earlier this summer. The jam that bridges the gap from Fantasy to Jude was just scorching hot. And then the jam after Hey Jude sounded great. And I was like, I am really not sure where they're going with this. You know, the one that these end of first set jams that we've heard, sometimes it's like, okay, this sounds like Birdsong, or like, I think this sounds like Truckin'. This one was not like that. It was total type 2 jam. And then like they dropped right into Truckin'.
Yeah.
I thought that was really great. And I thought that O'Teal deserves a real shout out during that kind of in between jam because I mean, he sounded great.
Yeah, I thought that jam between Mr. Fantasy and Jude was the high point of set 1, and then Mayer was kind of doing his best at an Indian bead string weave attempt because he just like kind of kept noodling under the na 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 part of Hey Jude. Like he just was still going right into that jam into Truckin'. A little
Hmm.
bit of a slower Truckin', slower by 2023 Dead and Company standards, who kind of as a whole, the theme this year has been the tempos up from previous years.
Yep.
Um, which is how I would also describe the next song, the set closer, Deal.
One other
Um,
note on Truckin', real quick. I think it was during this song. It might have been during the jam beforehand, but Bob switched from throughout the beginning of the set. He was playing the D'Angelico guitar that they're auctioning off,
mhm.
and it sounded great. But then during Truckin', he moved onto his own Paul Reed Smith guitar. So different equipment, and whatever the tone is on that, it was just wonderful. Very buttery compared to what his tone has been for, and I like the tone that he's been playing with. Absent that first night in LA,
Hey, yep.
his tone has been really good throughout this tour. But that one was like, ooh, I like this guitar. And I think, I mean, I'm sure that it's because Mayer is like, he basically has become Paul Reed Smith
Yeah.
himself. I'm sure that that's how Bob ended up with that guitar, but it sounded really good. So then, as you were saying, Deal.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, a fantastic deal, but I would describe it as more of a deal you can dance to than a deal you can go for a run to.
Yeah.
Like for example, the Cincy deal to open set two that you saw last year, you could go for a run to that song. Like it moves, it cooks.
Go for a sprint to that song. Yeah.
Yeah. This one was just it just had a little like a little more dancey bounce than like a rockin' march, I guess is how I would describe it. But it's all
Yeah.
good. Like it sounded great. Jeff sounded great. Um, that's all.
No, I completely agree. There's a nice Mayer solo on it that kind of gave way to a, I'd say like a sweet Jeff solo. Not particularly long and not like a monster deal, but I mean, I'm just never mad to hear this
Right.
song.
Same.
So that was the conclusion of set one, and now why don't you read us the entirety of set two,
Okay.
Dave?
Just to keep it consistent with what we've
Yeah,
been doing all summer.
I got over my skis.
Set two, Scarlet into Fire to open it up, and then Estimated Profit into Eyes of the World, into Drums and Space, into a Miles Davis cover, All Blues, into Cumberland Blues, into All Along the Watchtower, and then a Morning Dew set two closer with a Broke Down Palace, Fare Thee Well to New York City encore.
Yeah. So I only listened to the very beginning of this Scarlet so far. I had the stream. I was watching along on Nugs, like many of you were, but at the end of the first set, which concluded right around 9 o'clock, Dave, our beloved alma mater, Mother So Dear, Wake Forest, they were going into like the seventh inning of a do or die winner take all baseball game to make it to the final two in college baseball.
Mm-hmm. With the
And
score still 0-0.
still 0-0. And my wife, also a Wake Forest alum, and I were watching that. And I was just like, I have been listening and watching set one and taking notes while I've been watching the game. And it had been a lovely distraction to so that I wasn't getting like too emotionally invested in the baseball game. But then at that point, I was like, all right, I owe it to this team to just be locked in for the rest. And so I was thinking like, oh, I'll listen to set two and watch set two this morning. And I just, it's been a busy day at work, so I didn't have time. So we still wanted to get this episode up. So I don't have any notes on set two. The beginning of Scarlet Begonias, I will say, Bob's voice was sounding a bit rough, like he was
Mm-hmm.
stretching for some notes a little bit. I don't know if that persisted throughout the second set, but one thing that you and I noticed last year at Citi Field is we were both so happy to be there and about the vibes that we didn't even notice that Bob's voice was like completely gone. Like when you listen to night two from Citi Field last year, I think it was July 16th or something like that. Um, he has no voice, especially in the second set. Like he is struggling, but in the barn, you didn't notice at all. So I just hope that
No,
if
we
his
didn't
voice,
notice either. And
yeah,
I've been listening to the taper version where like the crowd is as loud as Bob singing along with Scarlet Begonias.
mm-hmm.
So I'm hoping that they had the same experience we did, where they and their fellow heads to their left and right are singing so loud, singing along that they don't even notice.
Yeah,
But yeah, I noticed that Bob's voice was a little tired too. I made it through the Scarlet Fire before it was bedtime. So the Scarlet sounded good, if not like noticeably slow, kind of like the Truckin', like not slow compared to the Grateful Dead, but slower than what they've been doing on this 2023 tour in general. And it really kind of made the transition weird. So Clementi sounded great on the piano in Scarlet. The standout moment of Scarlet, I thought, was like the last 60 seconds where O'Teal's he played about 6,000 notes in just under 30 seconds. Like he started going all over the place. And then they transitioned to Fire with like an upbeat tempo. And it was a weird transition because the Scarlet was so noticeably slow and it didn't transition at the same tempo. It
Mm,
was like on a dime, the drummers went up about 15 to 20 beats per minute, and it was noticeably faster. So it wasn't that like good smooth groove into Fire with then O'Teal's voice greeting you.
mm.
It was like the bass and the drums noticeably changed and then O'Teal's voice. So the transition was a little awkward, a little clunky because the tempos were so different. And then the Fire, kind of like it's been all year, there's been nothing like to write home about or report on, but it's just excellent singing from O'Teal and like an excellent upbeat, bubbly version, like it has been every time out. Um, that was bedtime for me, but I do want to note that at 21st Century Dead also noted that the transitions and the one in particular between Estimated and Eyes was also a little clunky, but that the
Interesting.
play in Eyes and the play in Morning Dew like sh- really just stood out above the slightly awkward transitions.
Nice. Also, probably worth shouting out that this is only the second time they've played all blues. The first was last year at Wrigley, and now last night. So that's very special. And I definitely am really happy that everyone who was in the barn last night got to um, got to be there for that and got to be a part of it. So, without further ado, let's get into estimated profits. So the band's next show is tomorrow night, Saturday, June 24th, for the first of two shows at Fenway Park. My cousin Coco is going to be there for at least one, maybe both
Ooh,
nights. Cokes,
nice.
enjoy it if you're listening. I know that you'll have a great time, and it sounds like she's on a very fun road trip, which is just the best. Just yeah, soak it all up. So shout out to Coco. So let's talk about what songs we think are going to be busted out during Fenway. We talked about this before this past 2 night run at SPAC, the interest and intrigue of trying to choose which night your songs are going to be played. My
Yes.
strategy, as you could tell for Citi Field, was I knew that Ramble on Rose and Truckin' were both going to be played, so I picked them both for night one. Rose was played, not Truckin'. I went right back to it for night two, and that paid dividends for me. So
Here's what I'm thinking for these Boston shows. So you noted this with your episode about Saratoga at SPAC. The first show was kind of a little spacier, a little trippier. The Sunday show that I was at was definitively more of like a rock and roll get up and dance show.
mhm.
If it's going to be the same vibe at Boston, is night one going to be the spacey one like it was at Saratoga? Or is night two going to be the spacey one? And night one is therefore going to be the get up and dance night. I don't know. I I want to believe they're going to flip it where night one is going to be a little more like happy, upbeat, get up and dance. And so with the first pick, with that in mind, I'm going with a song they haven't played since Philly. I'm going with Jack Straw.
I like it. Um, I really thought a lot about this, and Jack Straw was one of the 5 songs on my short list of what do I think they're going to play. I definitely
Okay.
think they're going to play it this weekend, and I hope that you are right and they play it night one. Um, they've also been playing it once per week all tour, and they haven't played it since Philly, so it's been more than a week. So they are
Hmm.
definitely due.
Right.
Another song that same exact logic applies to is my first pick, Brown Eyed Women.
Yeah, that's coming one of the two nights.
It is, and they've played it once a week all tour, so they haven't played it since Philly. They're due. So I feel like that one is going to get played. It's just a question of will it be on Friday or sorry, Saturday or Sunday. And I don't know, I get the feeling it's going to be Saturday. They rock the hell out of that song and it feels like a good like maybe the second song of the first set, bust out a nice Brown Eyed Women and get the people up and moving. So that's my first pick. My second pick, all right, this one is a deeper one, but I
Okay.
feel confident about this. They're going to play Big River. I don't know which night, but I'm guessing night one. Here's why. They play this song in places where there's a big river.
Yeah, St. Louis.
That's the only time they've played it this year.
Okay.
Um, the They played it twice last year. Once at Cincinnati, which backs right up to a giant river. I was there for
Makes
that.
sense. Yeah.
The time before that was in 2021 in St. Louis. Before that in Cincinnati, and this would be the fourth time that they've played it in Boston. They played it
Hmm.
at Fenway in 16. They played it at Fenway in 17, and they played it at TD Garden in later in 17 because of the Charles River in Boston, a central feature of the city of Boston. So I definitely think that this song is going to be played this weekend. To me, it's just a question of which night. I'm going to hedge my bets by saying night one because I've got the first pick for Sunday. So if they don't play it, I'm going for it again on
There you
Sunday
go.
night.
You're right back in it.
So that's my logic. Brown Eyed Women and Big River. And I also get the nice um, theme of bees. I'm going with the bee songs in honor of Boston, in honor of
Hmm.
the bees, the
There you go.
Bruins, as they're called. And the Boston Red Sox have that bee logo that's all over their ballpark at Fenway. So that's my picks for night one. I'm sticking to them. What's your second pick?
My second pick, I was also thinking about where they are and what are some calling cards of Boston. And Boston is a very aquatic city. Like the
Yes.
aquarium is a big deal. It's on the water, shipping in and out. The Boston
Tea Party.
Tea Party. Yep. All that stuff is important. So I thought, what's a song that really encompasses like harbor life or life on the docks? And I'm sticking away. I'm going to the other end of the alphabet. I'm going near the end for a W. So I'm going with Wharf Rat because I think that that song has a harbor, a life at sea, life on the docks kind of vibe, and that vibe fits the city of Boston as like if you want to equate it to Boston is to the east, what maybe that vibe on San Fran is to the west. So that's my pick, and I'm going with some Wharf Rat.
I love it. Um, for a second, I thought you were going to say Jackaro. And I was like, oh my God, that would be a
Oh,
deep pull.
that would be a deep cut. I'm not bold enough to do that just yet.
Maybe
But
for
hey,
night
maybe
two.
night two.
They have not played that since 2018, so that would be a real surprise if they
Mm.
busted out Jackaro. I hope that they do. That would be sick. Also, one thing in Boston, a couple years ago, they brought out Donna Jean in Boston. I don't know if she
Oh
lives there now
wow.
or what the situation was with that, but that would be pretty awesome if we had a God Show appearance, or
Yeah,
now
I
Donna
would
Jean God Show McKay. I mean, bust Donna out. Let's get her
get her
playing
on
in
the
the band.
stage. Yeah. Um,
Let's get weird.
real quick, when we were at SPAC night two, we saw a plan. And shout out to my cousin Liam who provided the Donna scream the first time it rolled around right before the first chorus. It was
he
like just unexpected and so well timed by him. And I
he's
think
doing
quite
God's work.
absolutely. God shows work.
Shout out to you, cousin Liam. That's tremendously good. All right, y'all. That's going to do it for Dave and I. Thank you for joining us, and we will be back. I think it's just going to be Dave on Sunday to discuss night one at Fenway, and then we'll be back for the rest of the tour. We've had so much fun doing these with you, so thank you for joining us, and until next time, know our love will not fade away.